All right, so today we're going to learn about solving and graphing inequalities. So first, what is an inequality? An inequality is a mathematical statement that compares the size of two quantities. Okay, so similar to an equation, equations use equal sign to compare two things and say they're equal. Inequalities compare two things, but we talk about the size of them. So that's kind of our textbook definition. What that means for us is it does not use an equal sign. Now we're going to use our inequality symbols. Okay, and we have four inequality symbols that we use and we need to know. So we have greater than, we have less than, and then we have little combination ones. So greater than or equal to, and then we have less than or equal to. Okay, so those are the four inequality symbols that we're going to use to compare quantities. So now let's look at how do we solve them, right? We learned how to solve equations. So now how do we solve inequalities? Well, the same as equations. So all those same steps that we learned for solving equations, that's what we're going to use to solve inequalities, except when the variable term is negative. Okay, and we'll talk about that in just a second. All right. So let's do a few examples to kind of refresh our brains on how to solve equations and how to solve inequalities. Okay, so let's look at this first one. 25 and then parentheses 3x plus 2 is less than or equal to 55. So I see parentheses, so I need to do my distribution. So I'm going to multiply 25 by 3x, which gives me 75x. And then 25 times 2, that gives me 50. So I have 75x plus 50 is less than 55, less than or equal to 55. Okay, now I'm going to start canceling out. So I'm going to minus 50 on both sides. It's going to cancel that out. 75x is less than or equal to 5. Now I need to cancel out the 75, so I'm going to divide by 75. And that gets me to my final solution of x is less than or equal to 0.06. Okay, so same steps as an equation, distribution, combine like terms, isolate your variable, and then cancel things out. Okay, so one more quick example. 7x minus 15 plus 2x is less than or equal to 35 minus x. So I see I have two x's on the same side, so I can combine those. Gives me a total of 9x minus 15 is less than or equal to 35 minus x. Now I have x's on both sides, so I need to cancel one out. I'm going to try and keep my variables positive. So I'm going to cancel out this negative or this minus x. So we're going to add x to both sides. So we get 10x minus 15 is less than or equal to 35. Right, now we're going to cancel out this 15. 10x is less than or equal to 50. And then lastly, divide by 10. We meet x is less than or equal to 5. Okay. So if you said a couple times, same as equation. So it's our same steps. We're using the same skills. The only difference is we now have that inequality symbol instead of an equal sign because we're comparing these things differently. Okay. So solving inequalities should be pretty familiar. Now let's look at graphing them. So the big difference is our solutions. So we need to look at how do these solutions work out in our inequalities. And we're going to see that visually when we graph them. So first we have to solve the inequality. So I have negative 5x is greater than or equal to negative 10. So here I have that negative variable term. So this is where it's going to be a little bit different. So when I solve this, I divide by negative 5 on both sides to cancel out that negative 5 with the x. And I'm left with x on this side and positive 2 on this side. Okay, so if you notice, my variables went from, it was negative 5x, now it's positive x. So because my variable went from negative to positive, negative and positives are opposites of each other when we're talking about size. So we have to make our inequality the opposite. So I have to flip that from a greater than to a less than. And then I have x is less than or equal to 2. Okay. So that is our one difference when we're talking about the difference between an equation and an inequality is when we divide or multiply by a negative, we flip the symbol. So you have to flip your inequality symbol to the opposite direction. All right, so if it's greater than, make it less than. If it's less than, make it greater than. Because again, negative and positive numbers are opposites of each other. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Now we need to graph this. So graphing it comes in two parts. First, the number that we got in our solution tells me the number that I need to start on my number line. So since we got x is less than or equal to 2, I'm going to start at 2 on my number line. The first part is I decide whether 2 is part of my solution or not. So we think about x needs to be all the numbers that are less than or equal to 2. So is 2 a solution? So we replace x with 2 and we ask ourselves, is 2 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So we put a solid dot here. Okay. And then we need to have an arrow showing, well, what are all the other numbers that could be solutions to this inequality? And since we want the numbers less than 2, we're going to draw an arrow off that dot going to the left, because all of the numbers less than 2 are down on the left of our number line. So the dot and the arrow represent our less than or equal to sign, and then 2 tells us that number we got for our solution. Okay, so pretty simple. You just got to remember those two parts. So your dot and your arrow. Okay, let's do one more example. So negative 2x plus 8 is less than negative 2. So we're just going to start canceling out here. Subtracting 8 on both sides gives me negative 2x is less than negative 10. Now I need to divide by negative 2. So dividing by negative 2, right? I had negative 2x. Now I have positive x. So that means I have to flip my sign. I divided by a negative. So I get x is greater than positive 5. Okay. Now we're going to graph it. So I'm going to go to 5 on my number line. I ask myself, is 5 part of my solution? So is 5 greater than 5? No, it is not. So I do an open circle at 5. And then I need to show the other numbers that can be solutions, right? Because 5 isn't one. So I need the numbers that are greater than 5. So I'm going to draw an arrow off to the right there. Okay. So that's our basics on how to solve and graph inequalities. So just remember the steps you do are the same as an equation, right? The only difference is when we're dividing or multiplying by a negative number. So just keep that in mind as you're solving them. And then when you get to graphing them, just remember the two parts is what does your starting point look like? So is it a closed circle like this one here, right? That's when the number that we're starting with is part of our solution. So our variable is equal to that number. Or is it an open circle like on our second example? That's when that number is not part of our solution. Okay. So go ahead and do your practice to try this out and good luck.